Hello, this is ZMaster. Welcome to the tutorial on how to use Advanced Rocketry 1.0 and above. I'm going to start out by going over basic recipes for playing the game in survival. So, start out, have different ores that are required to work with Advanced Rocketry: copper, tin, rutile, which becomes titanium in the end, dilithium, which is used on warp ships as fuel. But anyway, in order to start the mod, you need to have a small plate presser, a block of obsidian, build it as such, leave a small hole there. Can be used as a early game way of duplicating ore. So if I put the copper here, if I pull the lever, give it a redstone signal, it'll perform an operation which results in 2 copper dust, which I can then put in the furnace for ingots. Most of the machines require plates, which you can get by putting a block of material in there, like a block of iron. If I pull the lever, it gives me 4 plates. It's a little bit less than 2 to 1. You get 4 plates from 9 ingots. Later on, there's a machine you can build called a rolling machine, which will give you 1 plate for 1 ingot. But for now, this is what you need to get started. So the first thing that you need to build in the mod to really get started is you need steel to build a lot of the more advanced equipment. So in order to get steel, we're going to want to build the electric arc furnace. Electric arc furnace, so you can, if you go in the hollow projector, if you shift right click on it, if you go in here, it's got a small blurb on how to use it, but if you shift right click, it opens up this interface, which I have here. Shift scroll will move the cross section. I'll explain what that is in a second. What I'm going to do first is find the electric arc furnace, which is here, and then I'm going to go find a place to build it. Here's good enough. I'll right click on the ground. It'll display a hologram of the machine. It'll display each layer at a time, and then it will display the full machine at once. But to change what layer is being displayed, I can hold the shift button and scroll up or scroll down with the hollow projector selected. And if I keep scrolling, it will eventually show me the whole machine here. And if I keep scrolling still, it will show the bottom layer again. So the arc furnace requires a bunch of heat-proof brick, which you can craft from 2 magma creams and 4 brick blocks here. Makes 16 heat-proof brick. You need about a stack of it. So I need to do that recipe about 4 times. If you hover over the hollow projector, it will tell you what machine you have selected and what blocks it requires. The electric arc furnace requires the electric arc furnace as a block, which is a control block. Use a creative input plug or a power input plug. If you have IC2 installed with Advanced Rocketry as well, you can get an IC2 plug that takes IC2 power directly, low voltage if I remember correctly. And then, of course, you got your heat-proof brick, and then you've got input and output hatches or heat-proof brick. You're an option for some places on the multi-block structure, and then 3 blocks of gold. Blocks of gold were originally going to be copper. However, at the time I was testing this structure here, the copper block did not actually exist yet. So that's why that's gold. I'll probably change it to copper or something else later on. But as of version 1.0.8, it's going to be gold blocks. So place on heat-proof brick. You can see that this is cycling through a set of blocks here. It's got an input hatch, output hatch, heat-proof brick. These are the blocks that are allowable at this location. Any one of the blocks shown can be placed there to make a valid structure. I'm going to put my input hatch there, an output hatch. Each machine needs to have at least 1 input and 1 output hatch. You can have more than 1 if you want, if the machine allows it. But it doesn't need at least 1, otherwise it won't be able to function because you won't be able to put your materials in or you won't be able to get the materials out. So I'm just going to keep building this. It's displaying an X here because it's missing a block. If the multi-block structure detects that there's a piece missing when it tries to form, it will display an X, like the one you just saw a second ago. I'm going to use the creative power input plugs. I'll show you how to use the power system label later. It's fairly simple. Advanced Rocketry 1.10.2 uses the Forge capability system that was added a few months ago as its power. For 1.7.10, it still uses the RF API. And if I now I complete the multi-block structure, if I right-click on this, it should form. It's not forming. Oh, you know what? You know what? I forgot the gold blocks. That's why it's not forming. There we go. So now it's formed. So it has a power bar here, progress bar here, on-off switch. You can turn the machine on and off by doing this. If you have it on and you put a material into it, so I'm going to make steel. Steel is made from iron and coal. Really should be charcoal. I'll fix that for 1.0.8. 1.0.8 will be charcoal and iron, not coal and iron. I missed the metadata, I think, when I went to add the recipe, because charcoal's actually same item ID as coal, just metadata 1 instead of 0. As you can see, the arc furnace is now working. And multiplayer, I have noticed there's been an issue where sometimes the front of the machine does not become its activated structure or its activated texture. So it may appear dark even when it's running. If you look in here, the progress bar will increase after a little bit anyway. So once you build steel, there's really 3 options you can take from here. You can build the lathe, the crystallizer, the cutting machine, the precision assembler. All those machines will be needed to build rockets, so it really doesn't matter which order you build those things in. I'm going to just do the lathe real quick, mostly because the lathe lets you get more rods, which are used in construction. So if you look at like the machine structure, for example, you see you got iron rods here. These rods can be made more efficiently in the lathe here. It's 2 to 1 versus 3 to 4. So you try and do the actual recipe in the crafting bench for, say, like the copper rod or whatever. You'll have three ingots here. Will output 4 rods. But if you were to put it in the lathe, you'd get 4 rods for 2 ingots, because each ingot will produce 2 rods. And there's a second layer to it. I have to shift scroll up. That doesn't matter what direction you place the motor in, it will still form. The lathe doesn't actually care. So it doesn't matter which way you have that in. If I right click, it forms. So I'm just going to do this. So now it's facing a different direction, still forms. Oh, and if you try and form it and you have the wrong block there, that's an artifact for me, shift clicking to create it. If you have the wrong block there and you try and form it, it'll display a big X saying, hey, you can't do this. You've got the wrong block there. So if I do that, motor down, forms. Same thing as the electric arc furnace here. Put material into the input hatch. You've got an output hatch here. This one doesn't have any options on it in particular, so there's really only one way you can build it. But if I put, say, like, I'm just going to do steel for the sake of doing steel. So if I put steel rods in here, steel ingots in here, this will run, display the little animation, or it shows a little animation display its progress. That just finished, so 2 steel rods. And it'll keep running as long as I leave it on. If I turn it off halfway through an operation, it will finish its operation before stopping. So if it goes there, it will stop. Alright? So now I've got the rods. Those are, you need the lathe to make the titanium rods, which are required to build the rocket assembling machine. The next thing you need to build are the basic circuits. Basic circuits require 3 separate machines. So you don't really need a particular order to build them in, as you do need all of them to build the circuits. So I'm going to build the crystallizer. Actually, no, I'm going to build the crystallizer first. I'm going to build the crystallizer, the output hatch down, input hatch, copper coils. Copper coils are built in the crafting table. 8 ingots. Makes a coil. Put that down. Create a plug crystallizer. And this is another 2-layer machine. So I shift scroll on the hollow projector to move that up. Takes another 6 quartz crucibles on top. I can right click to form the machine. Crystallizer makes silicon bowls. I never forget to pronounce that. I apologize if I pronounce it incorrectly. But in order to make that, it requires silicon ingots and silicon nuggets. Silicon nuggets are formed by putting a silicon ingot in a crafting bench. Makes 9 of them, and just like you'd expect with like iron or gold. I'm sorry, gold. I don't think they don't do that with iron until 111, I believe. But to make the silicon ingot, you can either take 9 silicon nuggets or the electric arc furnace, which is what you need to do. You need to put sand in the arc furnace will make 1 silicon ingot. So if I put the silicon ingot in the input hatch, put the silicon nugget in there, and turn it on, then it will perform it'll make its output, which is silicon bowls or pollules, or how to pronounce that. These silicon bowls, pollules, again, sorry, things. I'm just going to call them things from now on. But if you put those into the sawmill, or cutting machine, which I believe it's called, I always have it sawmill in my head for some reason. That takes an input hatch, output hatch, power supply, saw blade assembly. Again, doesn't matter which direction that's facing. Another motor. Again, doesn't matter the direction. The cutting machine does have to be facing forward. It's a 2x3x1 structure, so unlike the other ones, that's all there is to it. So I right-click on it, and it forms. So I can put the silicon things in the input hatch, turn on the machine. Again, I've been using the cheaty power supplies just for the sake of the tutorial. In survival, you will need power. I'll go over how to use the power in a few minutes. So I turn that on, it produces its output. Another interesting thing about this is, if it's running, you don't want to stand on it. I'll demonstrate with can I find like a cow or something here? Yeah, I'll put a cow on here. So if that's running, you'll take damage if you stand on the saw blade. Well, player will anyway. I need to fix that. Maybe I disabled the config, I don't remember. But anyway, that makes silicon wafers. That was supposed to be a little side gag, but I'll figure out why that's not working. If it's something in the config I did, I'll fix it. So it makes silicon wafers, which in turn are used in the precision assembling machine to make composition scanners, microtransmitters, stuff for satellites. I'll go over that later as well. But our real target is the basic circuit plate, which is a gold ingot, redstone, and a silicon wafer. Make the precision assembling machine over here. It's a bit of a bigger machine, and does take a little bit more resources. Copper coils in the bottom. Output hatch, input hatch. The power supplies here. I guess another one. This is one of those machines where you can kind of build it how you want. There are several places where it doesn't really matter what you put where. So the next layer is glass on the front, machine structure all around, hollow in the middle over top of the heating coils. Nothing goes there. And again, the top is just machine structure. And the precision assembler control block. Make sure it's facing forward here like this. Right click to form the machine. One cool thing I'd like to show you with this is you can actually have multiple input slots. It doesn't, as long as you have all the materials for the recipe, it doesn't matter which input slot you put it in as long as they're all there. So you can so if you really want to, you could have a separate input slot for each material. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you can. So I'm going to check the recipe for that real quick. I keep forgetting it. I need redstone and gold. So it takes a little bit of redstone, a little bit of gold. The advanced ones take a bit more material. I believe it's a block of redstone instead of redstone dust. So I put the gold and redstone in this one, silicon wafer in that one. I turn that on. It'll produce the actual chip here. So when it's running, it runs a little animation, shows you how far it is. I'm just going to put them all in the same one. So once it finishes with that particular recipe, it will put it in the output hatch here, which gives me a basic circuit plate. This basic circuit plate can be used in the saw, mill, cutting machine. So you can see now it's making our chips, cuts that wafer up, all the chips up. So now I have basic circuits, gives you 4 basic circuits. These are used to make the satellite ID chips, the planet ID chips, the tracking chips, and I believe it goes to feed in the electrolyzer as well, which I'll show you in a bit. The tracking chip is required to make the guidance computer for your rocket, so that's why you need that. So the next thing you need to do to build your rockets, you do want to fuel it. Since we're on the topic of machines, so I'll just slide into that. So next thing, so you need to find the electrolyzer. Rocket fuel is, in advanced rocketry, is basically hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, which it's a real fuel that they use. However, advanced rocketry, I do oversimplify how it's used and how it's created, as the way you create it in real life is actually kind of complicated, and I've not been able to find much information that I could understand. I'm not a chemist, so, and all this queen and other stuff, I'm just like, I don't even know where to get this, so I'm not going to put, I can't even figure out where to get this chemical, so I can't put it in the mod. Plus, make the changes really tedious, so what I just did was I have this magical chemical reactor machine that takes oxygen and hydrogen and then turns it into rocket fuel. So I'm going to build the chemical reactor as well. The electrolyzer takes in water and outputs. Actually, I'm going to build it facing the other direction, make it easier. You'll see why in a second. Because I want the fluid output hatch facing where I'm going to be building the rocket. So that takes fluid output hatch, creative. In survival, again, you'd be using like the regular power inputs, the IC2 or the redstone flux power input. I'm going to build the second layer here, fluid input hatches on both sides. Item input hatch here. The fluid input hatches have circles, and the item input hatches have squares. Same with the output hatches. Replace that, build the machine. Right, so I've got both these machines built, not running right now. What you want to do is you want to feed the oxygen and the hydrogen into the chemical reactor here. So I'm just going to do is I'm going to put down these liquid pipes. They're standard forged liquids, so you can use pipes from any mod to do this if you want to. It doesn't have to be Advanced Rocketry's pipes. Same with the power. As long as the power system supports the forged capability system for energy in a 1.10.2 or for the Advanced Rocketry for the 1.7 version of Minecraft, as long as it supports RF, it'll work as well. So now I've got this hooked up. I turn these on so they work right away. It doesn't really matter which chemical goes to which input, as long as it just has the 2 different chemicals in there. The electrolyzer takes water in, splits it into hydrogen and oxygen, just like real electrolysis. However, for the sake of not having a lot of annoying liquids floating around, I did make it even. So unlike real electrolysis with water, it produces equal parts oxygen and hydrogen, just for the sake of making it a bit easier on the user and not having to figure out complex fluid disposal techniques. So this is now running. You can kind of tell that by the little thingy running back and forth on here. See in the fluid hatch you're getting oxygen and hydrogen. You'll notice that the fluid pipes are not extracting. This is because in order to extract, the fluid pipes need a redstone input, or a redstone signal on the input pipe. So if I do this and that, see this should be draining. This one's working. I don't know why this one's not. I forget to flip. Let's see, somehow. Oops. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on with this one. I wonder if I missed a block somewhere. Oh, there we go. Not quite sure what happened there. But now the oxygen and hydrogen is being output to this machine, which in turn is now running. You can tell that by the sound it makes and the spinning drum on the back. Outputs rocket fuel to this block here. It does make rocket fuel fairly slowly, only a couple millibuckets at a time. So that's how you get everything you need to go to space in a nutshell. There's another machine too, which I'm just going to briefly go over, that's not required to get to space, but it's the rolling machine. It makes making plates a little bit more efficient. So if I build, oops, I didn't mean to shift right. So if I build that, got the machine structure, fluid input, because this requires water to keep it cool. That's the idea behind it. 2 output hatches. Oops. More machine structures, input hatches, and the control block here. Right click to form it like all the other multi-blocks. Like I said, this requires a small amount of water to work. So I'm going to demo real quick. What kind of plate should I make? Make iron plates. I'm going to take an iron ingot and stick it in here. Does a 1-to-1. So instead of one ingot gives you 1 plate. It is required later on to make the iron sheets, which in turn are used for the carbon collection cartridges, station lights, or mapper. But you can get to space without that. So next thing I want to show you is that when you get to space, there's no air. You need a spacesuit. So I'm going to demo how to make the spacesuit real quick, and all the stuff involving the spacesuit. So basic components: space helmet, space boots, space chest piece, and space leggings. You might see that there are other components here too. I'll get to those in a second. What am I looking for? A suit workstation and gas charge pad. Oops. I need to stop throwing chest pieces around. So I'm going to place that there. Which one is this? This is the oxygen one. So I'm going to turn this off and siphon away some of the oxygen. There we go. So, in order the suit comes built in with a half an hour supply of oxygen. So if I go to survival, you can see there's an interface on the top left and just above the food bar. The little bar of the food bar says O2 on it is how much oxygen you have. Right now it's empty because I haven't put any oxygen in the suit yet. If I stand on the charge pad, it'll begin to fill up the suit with oxygen. See the blue bar increasing. The little modules in the top left show what module you have installed in your spacesuit. The spacesuits are modular, so you can put different modules into it, like jetpacks, anti-fog visors, things like that. Once you fill up Now, since I've got my oxygen bar full now, that's 30 minutes of oxygen in a vacuum or other hostile atmosphere. It does not use it while you're walking around on Earth or in an oxygenated area, like on a space station that you might have a sealed room or whatever. Let's see, I need another one of these. Like I said a second ago, the spacesuits do have modules that you can put onto them. And this cow is getting in the way. Silly cows. So, under here, got like the hover upgrade. I do have a jetpack in here somewhere, don't I? Can I fly without a jetpack? Space Mod doesn't have a jetpack, right? Anyway, yeah, there's a jetpack here. Suit chest piece. And actually, a cool thing I want to show is the when you put the jetpack in the suit, it actually does display it on your back if you're wearing it. So saw a second ago there wasn't any jetpack on there. Put the jetpack in. Now it's got like the render on the back. So actually, if you hover over it, it tells you what modules are installed as well. And if I go back into survival, I can see up in the top left now there's a little icon for the jetpack there. The jetpack does require fuel. In order to fuel it, you need to have the fuel canisters, which is why I have the super heavy, what are they called? Super high pressure tank. The more tanks you add, the more fuel you can store for your jetpack. Both these tanks go into the suit chest piece, just as well as the jetpack. And just like the oxygen, you can stand on a hydrogen charge pad, or a charge pad with hydrogen in it, which there isn't any hydrogen in this for some reason, because it's all going in here, I think. Actually, no, it's trying to extract from, that's what's wrong. Hold on. Oops. Wrong spot. There we go. So now it's going to fill up with hydrogen. Go back to survival. So if I stay on here, it slowly will fill up the jetpack with hydrogen. It's in the bottom right corner there. So I'm pumping hydrogen into this from the electrolyzer. So when I jump, it doesn't do anything. But there is a key. If you hit the X key by default, it toggles your jetpack. If you're wearing one, you see when I hit the X key, the jetpack symbol in the top left corner turns from green to red and back every time I hit the key. So if I toggle it into the on position, hit X to toggle, and then I jump and hold the space bar, I can fly around. It has a pretty good flight time if you've got the super high pressure tanks on there. But just be careful you don't like drop on the land or you'll die. You don't want to do that. It's also a bit difficult to control. You kind of bob up and down as you're going, and you might want to use it to like build or something. So there's an add-on for that too. If you go into the suit workstation again, put the helmet in here. If you take the hover upgrade and install that into the helmet, it will give you the ability to hover with the jetpack. If you toggle jetpack on again, I'm not hovering right here. It's because I'm in a standard mode. If I crouch and hit X, it'll toggle the jetpack mode to hover mode, which is symbolized by the red bars in the upper half and the green bars in the lower half. So you can see now it's a lot easier to control. It's much closer to like create a flight or something. You can actually even toggle midair if you want to. Just be careful about doing that. You'll drop a little bit first. A good complement for the jetpack, especially if you don't want to have a hover upgrade, is the padded boots. Padded boots will negate all fall damage, so if you fall with the jetpack or whatever, you don't die. The padded landing boots go into the boots. The space boots. So now if I fly up really high, and I land, I don't take any fall damage. Similarly, if I were to jump off a cliff, so here, turn off the jetpack. I jump off a cliff, I also won't take fall damage. Flying around hover mode, jetpack especially, is a little bit slow. You can get an upgrade, the flight speed control upgrade, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, flight speed control upgrade. If you put that in your helmet as well, you can increase how fast you fly with it. And they do stack, so if you have more than one, it does make you go faster. So if I go back to survival, turn on the jetpack, in hover mode, notice that when I'm going up and down much faster than I was before, I can fly around much faster with that upgrade, which is helpful. Another upgrade for the helmet is the, oops. I'm in my dev environment, so I don't actually have my skin on, or the skin for my character on right now. So I guess it just stuck me with the newer skin. Or one of the newer skins, rather. So the atmosphere analyzer can actually be used on its own as well. So if I right click, it tells me what atmosphere type I'm currently standing in, whether or not it's breathable. So right now I'm on Earth, which, air is the atmosphere, obviously. It's breathable, and it's 1 atmosphere, because it's 1 atmosphere. It's kind of definition of it. If I remember correctly, the definition for 1 ATM is atmospheric pressure at sea level on Earth at I don't remember what temperature it was, but it was a certain temperature. So I can actually put that in the helmet as well. And now if I put the helmet on, if you look at the bottom left of the screen, you can see that there's a little display. It gives you the atmosphere type and whether or not it's breathable. Usually there's a little box that appears around that. And it's not appearing around it right now for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. That's interesting. Let's turn this off. So, it stays up to date in real time, so if I go walk into a vacuum, it would change from type air to vacuum. Tell me it's not breathable, more than likely. So, that's spacesuits in a nutshell. There's a couple of other upgrades. I'll explain the anti-fog visor later. Some of the higher pressure planets have really dense atmospheres and therefore can't see very far on them. And the anti-fog visor is helpful there. The bionic legs, similarly to the flight speed control upgrade, actually let you run faster. So those go on the legs. I'll show you that real quick. So I put that on the legs. Now if I run, I can run at Mach 10 if I have all 4 of them on there. And again, these stack just like the flight speed control. So if I only have 1 in there now, it's a bit slower than it was before. I thought that was a kind of cool thing to add. I am personally not a huge fan of them because unless I'm running far, but if I'm just walking around my base building, I don't want to be slamming in the walls and stuff at Mach 10. I'm actually kind of afraid to try this with the speed potions. I've never actually done that, admittedly. But so that's how you use the spacesuits. So at this point, we've covered going over the machines and how to make the spacesuits. So now I'll show you how to build rockets, which is probably one of the more interesting things in advanced rocketry. It's even the name of them on, rockets. So to build a rocket, you need to build a launch pad. Launch pad is comprised of concrete, ink sac, dandelion yellow. 1.0.7, it only makes 1 concrete from this recipe, and 1.0.8 will make 16. Like I said, I'm running the development build, so I haven't released that particular change yet, and I will in the very near future, probably tomorrow or something. So you can make the rocket, I apologize. The launch pad has to be a square or a rectangle. It doesn't have to be a perfect square. Well, it can be rectangular, but it has to be either a perfect rectangle or a perfect square. Can't have holes in it, otherwise it won't work. So, I've got a little 5x5 pad here. If I do this, it's not going to work. If I do this, it's not going to work either. So make sure it's a rectangle or a square. I personally prefer mine to be square, because it kind of drives me up the wall if it's not square. The structure tower determines how tall the pad will be. Make sure it's lined up with the bottom of the launch pad here. So there's that. The pads can be up to 16 blocks by 16 blocks wide and up to 64 blocks tall if you really want to build enormous rockets. I prefer to keep my rockets relatively small. So the next thing you need to put down is a rocket assembling machine, which is constructed from titanium gears, titanium rods, control circuit board, user interface. User interface and circuit board exists in almost every machine. Alright, so the basic things you need in a rocket: engines. You can use a liquid fuel engine. There is the advanced rocket engine. It's the same as the liquid fuel engine, except it produces more thrust for the same amount of fuel. So each liquid fuel engines produce thrust and consume fuel. The more engines you have down, the more thrust you create, and the faster you consume fuel. So there's a bit of a balancing act there. You have fuel tanks. Add a bit of weight to your rocket. They count as each block counts as 1 unit of weight. So liquid fuel tanks add 1 unit of weight, just like every other block. Yeah, but they also can hold fuel, which is required for the engines, because how are your engines going to go anywhere if you can't burn anything, right? So I've got the fuel. I need to find the guidance computer. Guidance computer will tell the rocket where to go for purposes of... If I hit the right key, it helps. I'm going to put that down. Need a seat. You'll sit on the rocket. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of put myself in a bit of a glass bubble on here. So I kind of want the rocket to look semi-nice. I mean, like I said, it's for purposes of demonstration, so I'm going to build it kind of quickly. It's kind of ugly, but whatever. Actually, no, I'm not going to put that there. So once you have your rocket built the way you want, open up the rocket assembling machine. You can scan or build. If you click scan, it'll attempt to scan the rocket. I forgot this actually requires energy, so kind of actually need to power it. I'm just going to use the built-in coal generator. Coal generator takes anything that can burn in a furnace and will produce power at 40 RF a tick from it. I'm just going to stick a bucket of lava in there for now. It's not quite enough power to fully power the machine, so it's kind of slow. There are 4 measurements here. There's thrust, weight, fuel, and acceleration. Thrust tells you how much thrust your engines are producing. Each of the basic engines produce 10 units of thrust. I've got 5 engines. That's 50 newtons of thrust, or a force thrust. I've got 26 newtons of weight here. So I've got 26 blocks on here. Consumes fuel at 5 millibuckets per second. And its acceleration is 0.05 blocks per second, or 0.05 meters per second. 1 block is generally known as 1 meter cubed, so let's say 1 meter is 1 block. So it says clear for liftoff here, which means put everything successfully on the rocket that I need. I'm going to show you what it looks like if I don't. I don't think this will have enough thrust to fly, so I'll knock the engine off real quick. Okay, so if I open this, I take that back, this actually does have enough thrust to fly. But I'll just knock out the fuel tanks. Scan it again. Could have sworn that wouldn't fly, but guess it would. Alright, there we go. So there's an error that pops up now. It says not enough fuel capacity, which generally the errors that come up here are fairly descriptive. Not enough fuel capacity, obviously, need more fuel. So you put more fuel liquid tanks on here. Not enough. If you get the error not enough thrust, then that means you need to put more engines on there. And if you don't have a seat, it'll complain about that too. Unless you're trying to send up satellites, which again I'll describe later. So I'll scan that again after putting that back. Clear for liftoff. So my rocket is the way I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click build. This will build the rocket. So after a couple of seconds, that thing will scroll by, and it will build the rocket for me. So if I go in here, it'll say rocket unscanned. This is normal. When the rocket is built, it'll go from clear for liftoff to rocket unscanned. It may not look like anything's changed, but if it's built properly, you should be able to shift right click it. I have not yet figured out how to get JEI out of the way, so someday I'll have to figure out how to do that. I don't know how to do that right now, but you can toggle it by default with Control-O, so you can see what's going on in here. So with the rocket, you've got your own inventory here, and then a list of inventories you can interact with that are currently on the rocket. This one's only got the guidance computer, so you don't have, so there's not really much to interact with other than that. You've got the fuel bar over here. Tells you how much fuel is currently on board your rocket. Right now I don't have anything, so I've not put any fuel on here yet. If I click on the guidance computer, it'll open up the guidance computer on board the rocket. There's nothing in here. The guidance computer is used to basically tell the rocket where to go. So what I need to do, I want to go to the moon, right? So I'm gonna make in quotes a planet ID chip. I kind of spawned it in. Yeah, kind of hacky, but I don't think you guys want to see me craft all day. So for the planet ID chip, you've got the basic circuits, satellite ID chip. Satellite ID chip is just another basic circuit. That's how you craft it. So I can put that in the guidance computer. It's currently unprogrammed. In earlier versions, you had to use the Planet Data Analyzer to do this. Since like 5 versions ago, that was repurposed for the Asteroid Body Data Scanner, or Data Analyzer Data Scanner. The ABOD. Data Analyzer, or something. I can't remember the name. I'm really bad with names. But now you can program your chip inside the rocket. Select destination. Rockets can only go to the planets within a planet-moon system. So with Earth, that limits you to Earth and Luna. So if I select Luna here, click select up in the top left. If I go up, it doesn't show me the sun because the rocket's not capable of going to other planets. So I'm going to select Luna, select. You might be wondering why it's headed up like this. In real life, combustion rockets take a long time to get to places. I mean, even the moon's like 3 days away. So like going to Mars or something equivalent, you're looking at months. I want to maintain some semblance of reality, so rockets, like our current day technology, are not really limited, but if you want to go somewhere in a reasonable amount of time, you are fairly limited to how far you can go. Warp ships can get you, which the warp ships I will discuss later will get you to other planets and other star systems. Anyway, you might want to know how to fuel the rocket. In order to do that, there's 2 methods you can use. You can use buckets. You can do it manually, or you can use the I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. I know it's in here somewhere. Fueling machine, something along that line. Hopefully it will come up. Here it is. Fueling station. So you can take the rocket fuel you've made in the chemical assembler a little bit ago. You can either use a bucket. I'm going to go in survival mode for this. Because in creative mode, if you use the bucket, the fuel on the rocket it doesn't actually use the fuel. It'll fill up the rocket, but the bucket will still stay in your inventory because, creative mode. So I can do it this way, putting a bucket in there gives me a tank of rocket fuel. If I right click on the rocket, gives me another bucket back. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So now you'll see that there's just a little bit of fuel in the rocket. But if I want to automate that, I'll take the fueling station out here. Doesn't have to be on the launch pad, just has to be kind of near it. This machine also takes a little bit of power to run, not nearly as much as most machines, because the idea is it's just running a small pump, which wouldn't require all that much power. So, I'm just gonna grab a stack of coal, stick it inside generator. This has power and some rocket fuel. Now, rocket fuel does take a little bit of time to synthesize, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit and just stick a ton of rocket fuel in here. Okay, so, I mean, it's not doing anything right now. See, it's not, rocket's not fueling, this isn't using energy, it's not doing much. But what you need to do is you need to link it to the rocket using the linker. So how you do that is you shift right click on the fueling station, then you can either shift right click on the shift right click on the rocket, or shift right click on the rocket assembly machine. These don't do this. This isn't exactly the same thing. So if you click on the rocket, it'll only bind it to the rocket. And if any other rocket happens to land here or whatever after you've taken off on this one, it's not going to bind to it. So if you want to bind it to anything that lands on this pad, you need to link it to the rocket assembly machine, which I'm going to do by shift right clicking. It says link successfully in the corner. It's always a nice thing to see. Hopefully it's successful. If you go in here, you'll see that the fuel is slowly rising. Takes a little bit of time. It's slowly draining. Another thing about the fueling station, too, is it actually emits redstone when the rocket is full, by default. So there you go. It's emitting redstone, the rocket's full of fuel. If you want to, you can change the logic on here so it emits redstone when the rocket does not have enough fuel in it, or there's no rocket on the pad. So I believe it will emit if there's not. I have to double check that. I believe it will emit if there's no rocket on the pad, too. Or you can just change it to disabled. Oops, I had it on disabled. If you have it disabled, it doesn't emit redstone under any circumstance. If you change it to redstone control inverted, it'll emit redstone when there's no rocket on the pad, or the rocket on the pad currently is less than full. And of course, normal logic will emit redstone when the rocket's full. So that's how you build the rockets. And now if I right click on the rocket, I'll sit in the seat, press space to take off, destination Luna, Luna being the moon. So if I hit space, the rocket will begin to take off. See the world kind of dropping away here. I'm not sure if I have the game streaming into the audio for this video or not, so I'm not sure if you can hear the noises the rocket makes or not. So it takes a little bit of time to take off and descend. I'm going to speed this section of the video up for the purposes of, I assume you don't want to watch this for like 15, 20 seconds when you're not actually even the one playing. Alright, so now we've arrived on the moon here. My computer was chugging a little bit because I'm trying to record at some semblance of 1080p on a laptop from 2011. It doesn't really like it all that much, especially when I'm trying to run Minecraft single player, which includes both a client and integrated server. So the bouncing there was a bit because the server was chugging, and the server thread was chugging. So now we're on the moon. The moon has lower gravity, like you'd expect it. Days are also a lot longer, so if you look at the sun, you might not notice it not moving because I turned daylight cycle off, but if I turn a do daylight cycle on, we'll do daylight cycle true. Even with it on, you'll notice it's almost impossible to tell it's moving, but the Earth in real life also has a bit of a longer day than, the moon in real life has a longer day than Earth. Even items on the moon kind of float a bit more too. I'm also wearing my spacesuit, so if I go back to survival, not dying mostly because I have a spacesuit on. Notice that in the bottom left-hand corner. Atmosphere type is vacuum at 0 ATM, and it's not breathable. Well, it's not breathable because space. So I take off the helmet, I'll immediately start taking damage, as would be expected. Put it on, I'll cease taking damage. It's going to actually start breathing again. Most moon-like planets or moons are going to be like this. Not much in the way of oxygen. The moon has, I'll probably go into, I have my jetpack, right? Yeah, I have my jetpack. Moon's fairly flat, craters here and there. It's got the same ore generation as Earth by default. Main difference being that the moon is also by default. This is another configurable option. 10 times richer in dilithium than the Earth, so you're a lot more likely to find dilithium on the moon to fuel your starships. Which is a good reason to come here if you're not coming here just for building another place to mine or just because you think it's pretty. So to get back, need to make sure that you're not going back to the same place. No destination's Luna. I'm already here. I don't want to go back. I want to go back to Earth. So by default, the C key will open up the interface for the rocket while I'm sitting in it, which I can then click select destination. I'm going to go back to Earth. Notice that changes destination Earth. I made the mistake of not bringing fuel with me. I have to be kind of careful about testing your designs. Make sure you bring a few buckets of fuel with you, just in case you get like stranded or whatever. Yeah, prevent that from happening. So I fuel up my rocket. Right-click with the tank for rocket fuel, and I'm going to take off again. Like before, I'm going to speed this segment up because I assume you don't want to watch this unless, or I assume you don't really want to wait very long if you're not actually playing it. Alright, so that's how you get to space with the rockets. So the next thing you might want to do is, well, what if I want to build, a satellite or something? What if I want to, collect data for the asteroid mining missions? Yeah, so what you do for that, I'm going to build another launch pad. I like having dedicated launch pads for satellite launches and stuff. So I'm just going to do that real quick. But satellites come in several different forms. They each collect different types of data. So you've got distance data, atmospheric data, mass data, composition data. I think, only the composition, mass, and distance data are currently used in asteroid mining. So I'm going to build another rocket pad. This one's going to be a lot more simple. I'm not going to ride it anywhere. It's going to be kind of silly looking. I'm going to put that here. On another set of pipes. Okay, so you'll also notice that this one's already reconnected and refueled this rocket, since I had linked it to the guidance, the rocket assembly machine. I apologize. My brain is just in full I don't want to work mode today. So fuel that. That has fuel, so I'm just going to build another quick rocket. Now you can also disassemble the rockets. Just be kind of careful where you do that, because you won't be able to reassemble it without a launch pad nearby. So now this has been disassembled back in the blocks. Put liquid fuel tanks on here. Launching satellites is very similar to launching players in the orbit. Same concept behind the rocket. Only difference is instead of a guidance computer, you'll want a satellite bay. which you can stick on anywhere. Again, I'm going to make mine really kind of ugly looking. You can make yours pretty if you really want. There was somewhere I had there's the coal. Coal in there. Alright. So, we're going to build the rocket. I'm sorry, not the rocket, the satellite assembler. Wow. You need the satellite builder and a power supply of your choice, which I'm just going to hook it up to a standard power input plug. There, satellite builder on top. Like other multi-block machines, right click. It's got power. This is a bit of a complex interface because it does a little bit more than satellite building as of version 1.0.7. It lets you copy chips as well. So if you have like a planet chip or whatever, or a space station ID chip, you'd put it in here and you could copy it. So if I were to say if I put a programmed space station chip here and a blank space station chip here, then hit the right to secondary chip option, it would then take the chip in the second slot here and then make a copy of the first chip, which is helpful if you want to hand out chips to your friends or whatever. So to build a satellite, a couple of things you need. Power. Not all satellites require everything, but any of the satellites being used to collect data, you're going to want a, large solar panels, power supply, and then you're going to want data storage units. Data storage units go in the bottom where it says I/O. You can stack them if you want. And batteries can go there. I'm just going to use a couple of large solar panels. Small solar panels should be sufficient for this. Actually, just to demo that, I'm going to use the small solar panels. Oops. Basic solar panels, not small. So I do that. That's a basic setup for a satellite. The main component was about to pick out here, the optical sensor, the composition sensor. These are what determine what the satellite actually is. The optical sensor will produce a satellite that collects distance data. Composition sensor will create a satellite that collects composition data. Mass detector, mass data. Some of these other ones do various different things. I'll show you how to use the microwave transmitter or mapper and biome changer in a bit. But now we're going to stick with making a satellite that collects distance data. One of the nice things about distance data is that you can actually collect it from the observatory too, which I'm not going to go over here in this particular video because it's, like I said, its only purpose is to collect distance data. It's a fairly straightforward thing to build. Now I also do plan on doing significant changes to how it functions in the next update, so I don't want to go over here and have everyone confused when it's just like, why can I do all this stuff with it now? What do all these buttons do? So I'll make a separate video for that later and just say now that's not totally necessary. So I'm going to click on the build button. This will consume parts here and produce the satellite. So now it's got like a satellite ID chip. The satellite ID chip is what lets me actually connect with the satellite once I put it in orbit. Try not to lose it, or if you think you might lose it, make duplicates of it and store a duplicate somewhere safe so you don't completely lose track of your satellite. Also produce the satellite here. It gives you a bit of information on the optical telescope, its ID number, ID 0, how much power it can generate per tick, 2, and data storage. There's 3,000 units of data. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load this onto the satellite bay, the rocket, build the rocket, and I have to make sure to link the fueling machine to this so I can actually fill it with fuel. But unlike the other rockets, there was a rocket I built before. If you right click on it, nothing happens. There's no seat on it, so you can't sit on it. You shift right click, it still brings up the interface. You can still see how much fuel's in there. A select destination won't do anything because you don't have a guidance computer. A disassemble will disassemble it. You can select the satellite bay, interact with it via the rocket if you really want to. Because there's not really any way of launching it with, you hit the spacebar, right? So, that's one of the reasons why I do have, my brain's not working. If I can find it. I know it's in here somewhere. I'll need the satellite terminal in a minute. Not the warp controller. Looking for the monitoring station. I need the monitoring station. So monitoring station lets you, essentially, does what it sounds like. It monitors the rocket. It'll tell you how high it is, how fast it's going, how much fuel's in it, and if it's a rocket that's going on a mission, it'll tell you the mission progress. So if I shift, just like with the fuel assembly machine, if I shift right click on here, and then I shift right click on the rocket assembly machine, it'll link it to the rocket assembly machine, and through that, anything on the launch pad. So if I open this up, you can see how much fuel is in it, its velocity, and its altitude. This also will take it also has a launch button, which will launch the rocket when you press it. Mission progress NA, not available. This rocket's not going on any mission, it's just launching a satellite to orbit. Again, I'm going to cheat a little bit and take these tanks of rocket fuel and stick it in here because I don't want to wait forever. The other thing about this too is if you give it a redstone signal, there's two ways you can launch it. You can give it a redstone signal or you can click the launch button. If you give it a redstone signal in normal mode, it'll launch the rocket when it receives a redstone signal. If it's in disabled mode, it won't launch the rocket until it stops receiving a redstone signal. And if you have it set to disabled, it won't listen to redstone at all. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to click the launch button here. You can see the rocket here starts to take off a little bit slowly, but that's only because I put so few engines on it. And I can monitor its progress here. See the velocity starting to tick up a bit. The amount of fuel used is going down. And its altitude is increasing. It'll take a little while to get up there, so I'll explain how to use the satellites then. Use the satellites. You need the satellite terminal that will connect to it. You can only connect to a satellite that orbit around the planet you're currently on or in the same system. So if I were to put this on the moon, I believe I'd still be able to access. The satellite. I can't remember if I extended it to moons or not, but I know if you're on a space station on the same planet, you can access it from that space station, or if you're on the ground. What I'm going to do here is place this down, kind of like keep it at eye height. Oops, I'm in the satellite terminal. So satellite terminal has a couple of options here. It's got destroy satellite, which if you have a satellite in here and you click this button, will delete the satellite and unprogram the satellite chip. So make sure you know what you're doing, or make sure you're sure you want to actually delete your satellite. So if I put this in here, it still says planet unknown. It actually says planet Earth now that I put it in there. That means the rocket's reached orbit and the satellite is now successfully in orbit around Earth. And it needs power, so I'll get a coal generator around the back, as I do with half the stuff I've got here. It sips power, it only uses 1 RF a tick, so it's not all that much. Oops. As you can see, it tells you how much data is currently on the satellite here, the data slot, how much total storage is, how much power is stored on the satellite, which right now is 0. Although that doesn't really matter for us, as this satellite does not use all that much power because it's collecting data. So how do we get the data out of here? There's 2 ways you can do that. You can put it on the data I/O chip, which I put in the satellite assembler that is over here. There it is. So you can put it on the data storage unit here. This is the internal data buffer for the satellite terminal here. Right now there's no data. Type some random data because there's nothing in there. Satellite's got 8. If you want to download the data, you got to click connect. And see the data here went to 0, but the buffer now has 8. So if I want to load the data onto the data storage unit, I click the store a chip button, which is on top, pointing towards the chip. And that'll store the data into the chip. Now you can see it says 8 out of 1,000 data, distance. Which tells us what type of data and how much. So I can then use this in a data hatch somewhere to put data in a machine. You can also use the data pipes to pull data directly from the satellite terminal as well. They work similar to liquid pipes, requires a redstone signal to pull. And if the buffer in the satellite terminal is completely empty, it'll actually pull data directly from the satellite, so you can fully automate it if you want to. I'm going to clear my inventory because I've got way too much stuff in here. I'm just bringing this to the next machine. It's like, what's this data for? There are plans for more uses for data in the future, but right now, the main purpose of data is for the asteroid mining missions, which I need the Astro Body Data Processor. Actually, so I'll build that. Oops. Data bus. I'm just going to have the data bus facing that for the purpose of making it a little bit easier. Create a power plug, output hatch, input hatch, data bus. Layer 2 contains the actual processor itself. Stone slabs make up the surface. And then right-click the form. Oops. So if I right-click on here, it brings up this interface here. It's a little bit confusing, but I'll go over it real quick. So each data type, so to program chips for asteroid exploration, which is the main purpose of this machine, we've got 3 different types: composition, distance, and mass. Distance data, the more distance data you have, will reduce the chances of you completely missing the asteroid on mission. The mass data will determine how much material you bring back, and the composition data will determine how much of that material is stone versus how much of that is actually useful ore or something. I do have plans on using this data elsewhere. I have not discussed this yet, but there is an orbital laser for the space station. I do plan on using composition data on that to increase make non-zero the chances of receiving a duplicate ore. So you can, instead of getting 1 iron per operation, you might get like 2 or 3 once in a while. The mass, thinking of having the mass data determine how much more efficient it is energy-wise. That's not going to fly. That's the composition data. I was connected to all of them. As the data bus in the back, these are programmed already. When you build the machine, it'll only put data into the correct slots anyway. So it's okay if you have them all hooked up on a line like this with the Astro Body Data Processor. So if I do that, that'll drain data from here. I should see distance data up here and here. It's not for some reason. Not sure what's going on with that. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Once in a while, the cables don't connect right or something, it seems. Need to figure out why it does that. But anyway, you'll see this is slowly filling up with distance data. And just like the distance data satellite, or the distance satellite, there's the other 2 types you can get from satellites as well. But in order to go on a asteroid mining mission, you need the asteroid ID chip, or asteroid chip here, which is constructed from a data storage unit and a tracking circuit. It's unprogrammed right now. In order to program it, you need to stick it in the Astro Body Data Processor, put it up top, and then it will start processing the discovery here. Sometimes you need to click it manually, but usually by default it will process it if you stick it in there. If you stick an unprogrammed chip into the input hatch, it will automatically stick it in there as well and program it. Once that's done, it will automatically stick the programmed chip into the output hatch. If you take a programmed chip and put it in the input hatch, it'll automatically put it in this bottom slot down here, which you can start doing research on it. So if I start doing resistance research, this will start filling up. This will drain, and you'll notice that the distance data on the chip is increasing. I'll just stop that now. Again, for the purposes of time, I'm going to cheat a little bit and essentially give myself all the data on here. Rocketry, fill data. These are commands only ops can do. So if I fill the data, now it just puts full data on the chip, 2000 for everything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build another rocket. This one's going to be used for my asteroid mining mission. I'm going to put a few more engines on here because I'm going to need to put a few more blocks in order for this to be a decent mission. So what I'm going to do is build the rocket, and I'm going to put chests on the rocket. The chests will hold the output from your mission. So the idea is you go to an asteroid, you drill it, you come back with ore. So I'm going to put several chests on here. Oops. Like this. Then I'm going to put some drills on it. The more drills you put on a rocket, the faster it will complete its mission. And actually, I did forget one thing. I do need a guidance computer on here as well. So the more drills you have on here, the faster it will complete its mission. At some point in the future, I may replace these kind of clunky drill blocks that do need to be on top. I might replace them with like a drill bay or something. You can put drill items into it instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the asteroid chip in the guidance computer. I'm actually going to put another drill on top of the guidance computer. Like this. I'm going to build the rocket. And hope that it's something that can be built properly, because I never actually checked it. And it appears that it is. Rocket unscanned. I can interact with it. Good. Let's see. This is out of fuel. There we go. So it's going to fuel the rocket up. The monitoring station. It's going to, when it's full. So what I'm actually going to do here is this is a cool trick to automate it. So if you want your rockets to always take off as soon as they're full, what you can do is just run a redstone cable from the fueling station to the monitoring station. So as soon as this rocket is full of fuel, it'll take off. And I'm actually going to put some fuel in here manually because this is taking a little while. There's a lot of fuel on board here, so if I stand back here, it'll be full any second now. Alright, I expect it to take off. I guess I ain't sure what's going on with this, but it should have taken off. So I'll just launch it manually. Or perhaps not. It is using fuel though. I'm going to disassemble this and scan it. Maybe there wasn't enough acceleration. I should have scanned it first. That was my mistake. It's got decent acceleration. Oh, you know what I did wrong? The structure tower was too short, so what was happening is this one drill block was on top of the rocket, preventing it from going anywhere. That silly... I make silly mistakes once in a while, and that's one of them. I am a little bit scatterbrained. Alright, there we go. So, again, I'm going to speed it on its way. Going to stick some rocket fuel in there. And when that's full, this time it should actually take off on its own. If something's holding it to the ground, it's not going to go anywhere. So, all right. So maybe that is an issue. I'll fix that later. So I'll launch it manually this time. I'll make sure that's fixed for the next version, 1.0.8. That one's got a lot more acceleration than the previous one. Probably because I put a ton more engines on it. So this is going to increase in altitude. Once it hits altitude, it's going to start this asteroid mining mission. It's actually going pretty fast. So again, depending on the more distance data you have, the more likely it is going to reach its target. The more composition data you have, the more likely you're going to get ore. And the more mass data you have, the more likely you're just going to get blocks in general. Mining missions generally take a little bit of time, 5 minutes. Then we'll come back loaded with ores. So in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to build space stations, which is another rather critical component to this mod. Because right now you can only go to the Earth and Moon. In order to go far, you need to build warp ships. And to build warp, you need a space station. In advanced rocketry, a warp ship is really just a space station with a warp core on it and a warp controller. So to build a space station, you need to build another one of these pads, or you could reuse the same one if you really want to. I'm going to build another pad because I kind of like keeping these things separate. I'm going to build a really small space station. So, just going to build this, structure towers here. The main difference is, instead of putting down a rocket assembling machine, I'm going to put down a space station assembler. It works the same way as a rocket assembling machine and has the same limits, except it doesn't actually build rockets. So, again, this needs power. So if I put a furnace here, I have coal in my inventory, I probably don't. So I'm going to power that. So to build a space station, you can pretty much lay out whatever selection of blocks you want. I'm just going to do stone. Or actually polished andesite. I'm just going to make like a small cross here because not going to be anything super fancy. I'll build off of this once I get there. You can build larger stations if you want to get up to 16 by 16. But I believe the height cap is also 16 for space stations. So to program a brand new space station, I'm going to take a station ID chip here. Just crafting with a link for a basic circuit. Put that in the chip slot. I also need to put a satellite bay in the other slot because it needs a container. Again, you can scan it. It'll tell you nothing here by default. So if you click scan, it'll say, ready. If you're missing the satellite bay or something, it'll say you're missing the satellite bay. If you don't have a chip, it'll tell you missing chip. So make sure you have both those in there. Once both those are in there, you can scan it, and build it, and now the space station ID chip says Station 1, and I get a space station container. That's going to take a little while, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just turn this into a rocket launch pad simply by switching out the machines. I don't want to lose connection with that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build another rocket. I believe, yeah, this one's disassembled. Build this down. These down. Just going to stick another satellite bay on top. And then I'm going to make sure you put the space station container into the satellite bay. You don't want to put your chip in there. You want to send the space station up. The chip just links it. It just gives you a way to get there. So once that's done, build your rocket. Also, another thing I forgot to mention is that smaller pads take less time to build. So now I've done that, I'm going to connect the linker to it. So I'm going to connect the rocket monitoring station to a linker. And going to fuel the rocket. Again, I'm just going to use a bucket of rocket fuel just to make it faster. 1.7, the tank of rocket fuel is actually called the bucket of rocket fuel. May update the graphic for that later. Okay, so once that's done, fueled, ready to go, I'm going to launch it. So once this reaches orbit, it's going to unpack the space station. I'll be able to visit it. If you want to give, quick thing is, if you want to give chips to your friends or whatever, you can come back to your satellite builder here, put a station ship in there, take another unprogrammed station ship, put it in the secondary slot here, and click write the secondary chip. This chip will vanish from this slot, it'll do an operation, and then it'll give you an exact duplicate of the first chip. So now I've got 2 station ships in case I lose one or whatever. I'll keep this one safely in the chest. So once this reaches orbit, which it's about to do, space station should be built. I'm not entirely sure what happened to the sky there. I need to figure that out. That was kind of weird. It's like it's almost like a boom or something. Okay, so I'm gonna rebuild this rocket because I actually want to ride this to the space station now. And also keep in mind, space stations do not have air, so if you're gonna go up there, you might want to bring a spacesuit until you build it up a bit to the point where you can actually breathe on it. Like before, you can click C by default to open up the UI if you're sitting inside a rocket already. I'm going to open up the guidance computer. I'm going to take out the Planet ID chip. I'm going to put the space station chip in there. You'll notice that it says press space to take off, destination station 1. Alright, so if I click space, or I am going to take off, and I'm going to go to the station 1. Like before, this is just a little bit of waiting, so I'm going to skip this part of the video. It'll be a minute for me, but it'll be almost instantaneous for you. Alright, so now I'm descending onto the shiny new space station I set up. You can kind of see it down there a bit. It's got the rocket thrusters firing. And so I'm going to land here. And I landed on it. When you first start your space station, if you build it really small like this, it may be a little tricky to actually get going with it. So, you might want to keep that in mind. Also, you might want to bring rocket fuel in case whatever design you have is not very fuel efficient or has very small storage. You kind of end up with like this. You may find difficulty getting back to orbit. So, from here you may want to expand your space station outwards. The other thing about the ID chips, the station ID chips, I'm sorry, if you open it up, it'll actually tell you what X and Z location you plan on landing at the planet you're currently orbiting. So in this case, we just built it from Earth, so the space station's currently orbiting Earth. And, destination, just press space to take off, whatever, what have you. Yeah, so if I were to take the space station to like Mars or something, it would take me to Mars when I try to take off. But it's essentially a way of getting back and forth. So unlike the Planet ID chip, you don't have to change anything if you plan on going directly back to Earth. I'm going to explain the auction system in a little bit. However, in order to do this, you kind of need to have more than this slab of whatever just floating here. So I am going to cut the recording, and I will build a small space station that I can use to actually explain things, and then I'll get back. Again, for you, it'll be instant. For me, it may take a bit of time. See you on the flip side.